In less than 2 months, we'll be reaching the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. That war just recently passed from living memory in terms of the men and women who served in the conflict. I believe the last veteran died in either 2011 or 2012, somewhere around there, really not that long ago. World War I had a huge impact on the course of the 20th century. Obviously, without a World War I, there wouldn't have been a World War II, and no Cold War, possibly no space race, and no information age, extrapolating from there. The beginning of the 20th century was interesting. We were just entering the modern era with new industrialization, mechanization, new travel, new types of communication, and there was still this sense that anything was still possible. There were still unexplored areas on the map. They may not say, here there be monsters, but anything was still possible. It was also a unique time where technology, military technology, really outpaced military strategy. Less than 50 years prior to World War I, the American Civil War occurred, and there the primary infantry tactic was line infantry, having large groups of guys lined up across from each other to shoot at each other. Obviously, the machine gun and artillery made all of that pretty obsolete very quickly. World War I also introduced entirely new types of warfare. Armored warfare with tanks, chemical warfare with, phosgene, mustard gas, chlorine gas, aerial warfare, obviously. Although the Civil War had balloons and whatnot, they didn't have any true aircraft. And then I guess you could add submarine warfare to the mix as well. Again, although submarines existed prior to World War I, they didn't really come into vogue until then. That being said, I'm going to miss Battlefield 1. The release of Battlefield 5, or Battlefield V, around the corner, is certainly going to dramatically impact the ever-dwindling number of Battlefield 1 active players. While the game itself isn't going away anytime soon, it's going to be harder and harder to find an active player base to match up with. And I greatly appreciate what DICE and EA have accomplished in Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1 shows a lot of polish and overall attention to detail. The sound design is magnificent, from the sound of distant thunder of guns across the battlefield, all of the voiceovers in their various respective languages. The soundtrack even is quite good, and it honestly doesn't get enough praise. The animations, from the basic reloads and character movement to entering a vehicle. I saw a player once enter a field gun from an angle, and the character model actually gripped the edge of the gun shield and used it to kind of sling himself around into position just behind the breech of the gun, and I'd never actually seen that animation before until then. I've been playing video games for a very long time, and I can tell you, gamers do notice this stuff. No matter how subtle it is, it does add up. It does really polish the final product of the game. And of course, I really enjoyed the gameplay as well. A lot of contention can be had between the balance of realism and the arcade feel, but I think DICE got it pretty on point. The vehicle balance especially has a lot of contention between aircraft and tanks, but it never really got to the point where I was so incredibly frustrated or disappointed that I put down the game for good. The gunplay itself felt fine for the most part. There were some things that I'm sure everyone would argue could be rebalanced. Maybe the light machine guns needed a little more damage, or the shotguns needed a little less. Maybe there needed to be fewer grenades and explosives overall. But again, I never found that to be an enormous turnoff. Realistically speaking, explosives didn't have as much of an impact in Battlefield 1 as they did in real life. But of course, the closer we err to the side of realism, overall, the less fun the game is to actually play. I still plan on visiting Battlefield 1 every once in a while. once it fully, completely dies, I'm not sure where I'll get the 1914 to 1918 era fix, but hopefully something else will have come out by then. I am aware of Verdun, that game that's being done by a rather small indie developer. It does look pretty interesting. I am excited to see what they end up with, but as far as I know, it's still rather in an early stage of development. Tannenberg is another one that shows some promise, although I will wait to see what happens when they come out of early access. Aside from that, I don't recall a tremendous dearth of World War I first-person shooter games on the market. There are some other genres, flight sim and strategy games, but those don't really interest me quite as much as the first-person shooter genre does. In terms of the setting, I do enjoy strategy games and even some flight simulator, although I have never truly been too skilled at flight sim games. But that's a story for another time. If you guys know of any upcoming World War I first-person shooters, I'd certainly like to hear about them. You can just post down below in the comments or send me a message, I suppose. And for those of you who own Battlefield 1, I guess my advice to you is enjoy it while you can. I know I'll be popping in every now and then. Just give it a go. Never been too terribly good at Battlefield games, but I enjoy them nonetheless, and I will see some of you out there. It's going to be a while, I think, before we get another period game where we can not only serve as a foot soldier, but control a boat or a tank or fly a bomber in a truly immersive online World War I experience. I know Battlefield 1 won't be the very last of its kind. I just hope we don't have to wait too long before we get another thing like it. Alright, have a good one, guys. See you out there.
Ein feindlicher Tank!